Hi everyone, this is Keith, the cemetery detective. I recently spent the day in Forest Hills Cemetery in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I have visited this cemetery many times over the years. Forest Hills is a document to the city of Chattanooga from its early industrial post-war growth through the 1918 pandemic and all the way through to recent burials as it continues to be an active cemetery. During this visit to Forest Hills, I spent considerable time developing temporal and geospatial documentation along with a drive-through video. Significant effort would be required to perform a full-scale recording of the cemetery, but my rudimentary work demonstrates the capabilities of these technologies. In a few moments, you will hear a podcast I produced from my work and research. The podcast is AI generated. I am continuing my education of artificial intelligence, which includes GIS programming and map development to help me become better at cemetery research. If you are involved in cemetery research, particularly layout design, GIS mapping, and historical documentation, please feel free to reach out to me in the comments below or through my website, The Cemetery Detective. Once again, my name is Keith, and I hope you enjoy the podcast that follows.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are heading outdoors, you could say, swapping out the usual archive stacks for, well, a landscape archive, a cemetery.
Yeah, it's a different kind of archive, but incredibly dense with information.
Exactly. Our mission today is to really dig into the best practices for managing historical data, and we're looking specifically at this really rigorous methodology used to document Forest Hills Cemetery in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
It's a critical shift in how we think about these places. I mean, a historic burial ground isn't just where people are buried, it's this incredibly rich, layered time capsule.
Right.
And if you approach it like raw data, which is what they're doing here, you can pull out insights about, geology, social history, economics, things a simple paper record just won't show you. Forest Hills is a perfect case study for this.
So let's paint the picture a bit. Forest Hills, established 1880.
That's right, 1880.
Nestled right there at the foot of Lookout Mountain in that historic St. Elmo neighborhood. And it's big, about 100 acres, I think.
Roughly 100 acres, yeah. And over 43,000 recorded burials. So a significant site.
Wow.
And what really stands out is that historical layering you mentioned. You've got generations of local families side by side with Civil War veterans, miners, the railroad and iron workers who, built that region's industry, plus Reconstruction era families.
So a real cross-section of history.
Crucial.
Okay, so the folks doing this, the cemetery detectives, as the source calls them, they have this massive task. They're not just like snapping photos. They're aiming to build a lasting, queryable digital archive.
Exactly. Queryable is the key word.
And the source material lays out this very precise two-part strategy. It breaks down into A, temporal documentation, that's the visual record over time, and B, spatial precision, getting the exact where for everything, the map framework.
That's the core idea. They're basically integrating two totally different kinds of data, video footage, and high accuracy GPS coordinates to make one coherent scientific record. It's pretty clever.
Okay, let's break that down. Part A first. Temporal documentation. You've got 100 acres, 43,000 graves. How on earth do you start capturing an accurate visual record that someone else could repeat later without spending years out there?
It sounds daunting, but it's very methodical. They use what looks like a simple drive-through, but it's done with specialized gear. They slowly drive all the lanes, primary and secondary.
Slowly being the key word there, I imagine.
Very slowly. And filming constantly at 1080p resolution or better, using steady mounting equipment on the vehicle. This gives you the entire environment, the whole context, as one continuous visual stream.
I thought the metadata part here was really interesting. It's not just raw video, it's stamped. Date, time, down to the second.
Precisely. They embed these time calls right at the start and end of each pass. So you end up with this continuous date-stamped visual record. And that video gives you incredibly valuable context. You see the road conditions, how dense the trees are, the sight lines between sections, even temporary things like flowers or flags. It captures the atmosphere, the feel of the place at that exact moment in, say, 2025.
But I mean, if the camera's on a car, even moving slowly, you're not going to be able to read inscriptions easily or see fine details on the stones themselves, right? The video gives you the general where, but not the specific what on the marker.
That's exactly the limitation. And that's why the video is only part one. They follow it up with what they call targeted captures.
Ah, okay. Boots on the ground time.
Pretty much. They do these walk and shoot segments, focusing specifically on important or unusual monuments. Things like the big marble angels, any mausolea, the major memorials. And they pay special attention to certain sensitive marker types.
Like those zinc markers the source mentioned.
Exactly, we'll come back to those. But for all these key features, they take high-resolution still photos. Those are for actually reading and transcribing the inscriptions and capturing that fine material detail, the little carvings, hairline cracks, any biological growth.
Gotcha. So the video captures the forest, and the photos capture the individual trees, more or less.
That's a perfect analogy, yes.
Okay, that visual record sounds really comprehensive. But like we said, a video or a photo isn't much use for research if you don't know exactly where the camera was when it was taken.
Yeah.
How do they tie that visual stuff to precise map locations? This must be part B, the spatial documentation.
This is where it gets really neat, and it happens at the same time as the filming. While that video camera is rolling on the drive-through, they're also running a high-accuracy GPS data logger. It's set to sample their position every, say, 1 to 5 seconds. Super frequent. This generates GPX tracks, basically digital lines showing the exact route they drove.
Okay, like when you track a run on your phone, but way more accurate.
Basically like that, but yeah, professional grade accuracy. These GPX tracks, these polylines, they become the spatial skeleton of the entire cemetery road network in the digital map.
And this sounds like the bridge, the thing connecting the time data in the video to the space data on the map.
It is the absolute secret sauce. Because the GPS track and the video are recorded simultaneously, every single point along that digital line corresponds to a precise millisecond timestamp in the video file.
Wow.
So once you import all this into GIS software, Geographic Information System software, a researcher can literally click on any coordinate on the digital map, maybe a corner of a road,
Right.
and the software instantly knows the exact second in the drive-through video file to jump to. You link the visual evidence to the physical spot instantly.
So the map becomes this dynamic index for hours of video footage. That's
Yeah.
clever. But beyond the roads, they must also pinpoint individual monuments too, right? Not just the driving routes.
Oh, absolutely. That's crucial for the detailed research. They collect single-point GPS fixes for key features, especially those unique or high-priority markers we talked about, unusual shapes, materials, important historical figures.
And each point gets what? An ID?
Yep. Each point gets a unique ID number, and that ID is the link back to those high-resolution photos we mentioned earlier, plus descriptive notes, what's the material, how legible is it, what's its current condition score, things like that.
Now, Forest Hills has been around since 1880. Surely they have some old maps or records. Are those just ignored?
No, not at all. Those old records are actually critical reference points. They take the cemetery's official map, often it's an old scanned paper map, maybe a PDF, and they use a process called georeferencing. Basically, they digitally stretch and pin that old map so it lines up perfectly with modern satellite imagery and the new GPS points they collected.
Ah, so they're overlaying the old onto the new.
Exactly. It ensures their new super accurate digital layers still respect and integrate with the cemetery's established section and lot grid. It connects the past records to the present data.
Okay, so we've got the how of collecting the data, the video, the photos, the GPS tracks, the points. But here's where the real value kicks in for researchers, right? The goal isn't just a pretty digital map. It's turning that map into searchable, filterable data. Tell us about these GIS layers and attributes.
This is the fundamental jump. Moving from just mapping to geographic information systems. See, a simple map shows you where something is. GIS lets you attach detailed information. Think of them like digital tags or labels called attributes to that specific location.
Okay.
And then you can query, filter, and analyze based on those tags across the entire 100 acres.
So going back to the archive idea, if the cemetery is like a giant library, GIS lets you search by genre, author, maybe date published, not just find the shelf number.
That's a great way to put it, exactly. You start with some basic foundational layers, like a high-resolution aerial photo of the whole place as a base map.
Right, the satellite view.
Yeah. Then the official cemetery boundary line. And that georeferenced old map we just talked about, those form the base. Then you build the infrastructure on top, the road lines, those GPX tracks. They get attributes like which video file they correspond to, the video start time, the record date.
Okay.
The plot and section grid gets digitized too, maybe with attributes like the lot number or even current availability status for cemetery management.
But the layer that seems like it unlocks the most history must be that monument points layer, where, like you said, one point equals one specific monument. What kind of essential data, what attributes are they embedding in those point tags?
Oh, a ton of detail. Crucially, they track the primary material. Is it marble, granite, bronze, or something less common? They note the marker type. Is it an upright headstone, a flat ledger, a big obelisk, maybe one of those zinc tablets?
Condition. Photos.
Definitely. A condition score, maybe on a scale, the reference ID linking back to all those high-res photos, and critically, a transcription of the inscription text, either full or partial if it's hard to read.
Let's pause on that primary material attribute for a second. Especially those zinc markers you mentioned earlier. The source really flags them.
Yeah.
Why focus so much attention on just one material type?
Good question. Zinc markers, they were often marketed under the name white bronze, were quite popular for a period, maybe 1870s to around 1920. They look very distinctive, sort of a blue-gray color. You won't mistake them for granite or marble.
Wow.
But the key thing is they pose a very specific conservation challenge. They're constructed differently, often hollow with internal fasteners, and the way the zinc surface patinas and sometimes corrodes is unique. They can become quite brittle.
So knowing where they all are is important for maintenance.
Exactly. By making the material type a searchable attribute, like having a tag is zinc true, you transform what could be a site-wide conservation headache into a precise, actionable map. You instantly see exactly where every single one of those potentially fragile markers is located across the whole landscape, which is mostly granite and marble otherwise. It becomes an immediate management tool for planning conservation work.
That perfectly illustrates how classifying the data drives practical action. So once you have all these layers built and tagged, material, condition, text, date, now,
Yeah.
how does this actually translate into doing meaningful historical or social research?
Well, it opens up incredibly nuanced, layered kinds of research that were frankly almost impossible with just paper records or random photos.
Like what? Give us an example.
Okay, say you're a material scientist studying how Victorian-era marble holds up over time in that specific environment. You could run a query like, select all monument points where the primary material attribute is marble and date erected attribute is before 1920.
And bang, the map highlights just those specific stones.
Instantly. You get an immediate map subset of exactly the stones you need to study the most vulnerable Victorian materials in this case. No more wandering around hoping to find examples.
And for the cemetery managers, the benefit seems obvious: planning maintenance.
Oh, absolutely. Immediate practical application. If they're worried about, say, settlement issues around those brittle zinc markers,
Yeah.
they run the query, map all points where is zinc true, and then maybe draw a 1 meter buffer circle around each one. Boom. The grounds crew gets a satellite accurate map showing exactly where they need to send the structural maintenance team to check the foundations.
But moving beyond just keeping stones upright, these layers must allow for visualizing social history over that century and a half too.
That's where the attribute data gets really powerful for historians. You can map demographics indirectly. You can track economic shifts by visualizing the change in material choices over time. You know, the move from expensive, ornate 19th century marble favored by the Victorians to the more durable, perhaps more affordable, granite that became common later.
Interesting.
You can map social connections by querying for markers that have specific fraternal emblems carved on them, like Masonic symbols or Woodmen of the World tree stumps. It maps out networks.
And given Chattanooga's specific history, I imagine mapping the locations of Reconstruction-era African-American burials is vital for documenting those historic, often segregated burial practices accurately.
Absolutely critical. That sensitive, vital history gets captured spatially, layered into the record. And they also use what are called historic overlays.
What are those?
They take old aerial photographs or old city maps, to reference them just like the cemetery's own map, and layer them underneath the current data. This lets you spot changes over decades, maybe, where a road used to be, or if sections were added, or even potential evidence of past reinterments. Forest Hills has such a long history. That kind of landscape change context is crucial, especially for genealogists trying to locate old family plots.
I see the source also mentions using this for environmental threat assessment. How does a map help you, like, fight off trees?
Well, not quite fight them off, but manage their impact. The vegetation and tree canopy layer is actually really important.
How so?
Think about it. A huge old oak tree's roots might be pushing up under a monument, causing it to tilt. Or a very dense tree canopy overhead can create a microclimate, more shade, more moisture retention that accelerates biological growth like moss or lichen on the stone surface, obscuring inscriptions. Okay. So the trees themselves can be a threat to the markers.
They can be. So mapping the tree canopy allows for proactive mitigation. They can see which important historical markers are directly under large, potentially damaging trees, and plan targeted pruning or other care to preserve both the tree and the stone.
Okay, let's try and bring this all together then. This whole combined approach, the temporal video and the geospatial mapping at Forest Hills, it seems to offer three really big benefits for history and preservation.
I think that's right. First, it preserves a precise temporal snapshot. What the cemetery looked like, its condition recorded with scientific accuracy at a specific point in time, like 2025.
Okay, freezes a moment.
Second, it provides spatially precise references, invaluable for anyone needing to find a specific grave, do conservation work on site, or conduct genealogical research accurately. No more wandering aimlessly.
Pinpoint location. And third, maybe most importantly, it enables complex data-driven research queries. It lets you ask sophisticated questions of the data and reveal patterns about history, geology, material science, sociology, things you just couldn't see before.
So it really transforms this static landscape of memorials into something dynamic,
Yeah.
a queryable digital civic asset.
That's a perfect way to describe it. It really does. And maybe the most compelling forward-looking insight from the source material is that this whole documentation strategy, it's not designed as a one-time thing. The source explicitly mentions using the GIS data for temporal change detection.
Temporal change detection. Okay, it sounds fancy. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means because the data is so precise, they can take the data set collected in, say, 2015, overlay the data collected in 2020, and then overlay this new data from 2025.
Comparing snapshots over time?
Exactly. And the software can compare the measured position and maybe even the 3D model of a monument between those years. It can automatically flag any marker that shows significant new tilt or has settled further into the ground, or, worst case, has actually fallen over since the last survey.
Wait, hang on. So the software can automatically generate a to-do list for the grounds crew by detecting deterioration over time.
That's the power of it. It moves cemetery preservation from being purely reactive, stumbling upon a fallen stone during mowing, to being proactive, even predictive. It essentially creates a digital early warning system for the entire 100 acres.
Wow.
Ensuring that valuable historical information and the physical markers themselves aren't lost simply due to gradual, unnoticed decay.
That completely shifts the perspective. This isn't just about meticulously documenting the past. It's about engineering the future of how we preserve these important sites.
Absolutely. It's preservation science in action.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with this final thought to maybe mull over. Given this level of precision, the high accuracy GPS, the repeatable methods, the change detection, what other kinds of long-term civic assets are out there in your own community? Think about maybe historic buildings, significant public art installations, perhaps even fragile natural landscapes or ecological sites. Could they benefit from this kind of detailed, repeatable, high-accuracy digital documentation? The cemetery detective work at Forest Hills really proves that sometimes the very best way to look forward and preserve the future is to map the past with extraordinary precision.